we're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort. And China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, you know, I come back with that video just to make you think. And the only reason why I'm doing this video because I received several emails from those who have my book. If you watched the speech of Biden about Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, and we know when it comes to the New World Order, they write all the president's speeches. And this was a pretty good speech. It was truth, wiggled in with lies. We know that Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street was bombed by the government. That's right, guys, bombed by the government. Why? Why was it bombed? Because you cannot continue the narrative with black millionaires and then selling the narrative of black people being slaves. It doesn't work. The Hegelian dialectic doesn't work. They had to get rid of them. Now in Black Wall Street, these were millionaires. And of course today, they would be billionaires. So guys, they had their own airport, grocery stores, movie theaters, hospitals, banks. That's right, guys, bank. And that's the key word. But then also law offices, libraries, bus systems. So guys, this was 1921. Federal Reserve started in 1913. Do you really believe that the New World Order would be in the place that it is now if you had successful black people keep rolling along? Remember, black people of today are worse off than they are in 1965 because of what they did. And Tulsa, Oklahoma was not the only place that this happened. The black and white system had to continue. They had to have this Hegelian dialectic in order to move the New World Order forward. You have to have a big enough distraction. And because we're tribal, people fall for it. Even though if you look at the South, guys, the white people there were dirt poor. But with the Hegelian dialectic, they felt some type of pride that they had someone beneath them, even though they were poor. And guys, the Hegelian dialectic has been tried and tested. Conflict management has been tried and tested. It's 100% effective. We see it every day online. Social media does it all the time, but the slave never recognizes it. Now that the New World Order is complete, has taken over the world, now they're coming to let you know that black versus white was just a game. And Biden basically told you that. Oh, this was just a game. Now it's time for us to re-educate. Now it's going to go back to nationality. Now you're an American. Now you're Chinese. Now you're Asian. Along with everybody else. Everybody else goes off nationality. In America, we go off crayons. That's right, guys. White versus black. I want you guys to remember this Biden speech. Because there is no more white privilege anymore. It's out the window. What I wrote in my book, I told you. Now it's the rise of China, Asia, the rich Asians, guys. Remember, your life is an illusion. TV is your reality. The New World Order has total control. They're going to airdrop you that free money. Remember what David said from R3. We airdrop them money to boost the economy. They have 3 to 6 months to spend that money, or poof, it's gone. The backbone of the economy, like Biden said, is small business. But those small businesses are coming back. We know the corporations are now your new government, what I wrote in my book. Biden's speech let the world know that the globe is under slavery. If you don't already have my book, get the New World Order book so you can free the mind. Undo the shackles. Because remember, when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. Have a wonderful day.
Full view. The events we speak of today took place 100 years ago, and yet I'm the first president in 100 years ever to come to Tulsa. And I say that not as a compliment about me, but to think about it. 100 years and the first president to be here during that entire time. And in this place, in this ground, to acknowledge the truth of what took place here. For much too long, the history of what took place here was told in silence, cloaked in darkness. But just because history is silent, it doesn't mean that it did not take place. And while darkness can hide much, it erases nothing. It erases nothing. Some injustices are so heinous, so horrific, so grievous, they can't be buried, no matter how hard people try. And so it is here. Only with truth can come healing and justice and repair. Only with truth. 1921. Formerly enslaved black people and their descendants are here in Tulsa, a boomtown of oil and opportunity and a new frontier. On the north side, across the rail tracks that divided the city already segregated by law, they built something of their own, worthy of their talent and their ambition. Greenwood, a community, a way of life. Black doctors and lawyers, pastors, teachers, running hospitals, law practices, libraries, churches, schools. Black veterans, like the man I had the privilege of giving a command coin to, who fought, volunteered and fought and came home and still face such prejudice. Veterans have been back a few years helping after win the First World War, building a new life back home with pride and confidence. For a mom, and there were at the time, mom and pop black diners, grocery stores, barbershops, tailors, the things that make up a community. A young black couple holding hands, falling in love. Friends gathered at music clubs and pool halls, at the Monroe family roller skating rink. Visitors staying in hotels like the Stratford. All around, black pride shared by the professional class and the working class, who lived together side by side for blocks on end. Mother Randall was just 6 years old. 6 years old, living with her grandma. She said she was lucky to have a home and toys, and fortunate to live without fear. Mother Fletcher was 7 years old, the second of 7 children, the youngest being Mr. Van Ellis, who was just a few months old. The children, former sharecroppers, when they went to bed at night in Greenwood, Mother Fletcher says they fell asleep rich in terms of the wealth, not real wealth, but a different wealth, a wealth in culture, in community, resentment and vengeance in the community. Enough people who believe that America does not belong to everyone and not everyone is created equal. Native Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, Black Americans. A belief enforced by law, by badge, by hood, and by noose that speaks to that lit the fuse. It lit it by the spark that it provided. The fuse of fury was an innocent interaction that turned into a terrible, terrible headline allegation of a black male teenager attacking a white female teenager. A white mob of 1,000 gathered around the courthouse where the black teenager is being held, ready to do what still occurred: lynch that young man that night. But 75 black men, including black veterans, arrived to stand guard. Words were exchanged, then a scuffle, then a shots fired. Hell was unleashed. Literal hell was unleashed. Through the night and into the morning, the mob terrorized Greenwood, torches and guns, shooting at will. A mob tied a black man by the waist to the back of their truck with his head banging along the pavement as they drove off. A murdered black family draped over the fence of their home outside. An elderly couple knelt by their bed praying to God with their heart and their soul when they were shot in the back of their heads. Private planes dropping explosives. The first and only domestic aerial assault of its kind on an American city, here in Tulsa. 8 of Greenwood's nearly 24 churches burned like Mount Zion across the street at Vernon AME. Mother Randall said it was like a war. Mother Fletcher says all these years later she still sees black bodies around. The Greenwood newspaper publisher A.J. Smitherman penned a poem of what he heard and felt that night. And here's the poem. He said, "Kill them, burn them, set the pace, teach them how to keep their place. Reign of murder, theft, and plunder was the order of the night." That's what he remembers in the poem that he wrote. 100 years ago, at this hour, on this first day of June, smoke darkened the Tulsa sky. Rising from 35 blocks of Greenwood that were left in ash and ember, raised in rubble. Less than 24 hours, 1,100 black homes and businesses were lost. Insurance companies, they had insurance, many of them, rejected claims of damage. 10,000 people were left destitute and homeless, placed in internment camps. As I was told today, they were told, "Don't you mention you were ever in a camp, or we'll come and get you." That's what survivors told me. Yet no arrests of the mob were made. None. No proper accounting of the dead. The death toll records by local officials said there were 36 people. That's all. 36 people. Based on studies, records, and accounts, the likely number is much more in the multiple of hundreds. Untold bodies dumped into mass graves. Families who at a time waited for hours and days to know the fate of their loved ones are now descendants who have gone 100 years. A clear effort to erase it from our memory, our collective memories, from the news and everyday conversations. For a long time, schools in Tulsa didn't even teach it, let alone schools elsewhere. And most people didn't realize that a century ago, the second Ku Klux Klan had been founded. A friend of mine, John Meacham, I'd written when I said I was running to restore the soul of America. He wrote a book called The Soul of America, not because of what I said. And there's a picture about page 160 in the book showing over 30,000 Ku Klux Klan members in full regalia, Reverend. Pointed hats, the robes, marching down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., Jesse, you know all about this. Washington, D.C. If my memory is correct, there were 37 members of the House of Representatives who were open members of the Klan. There were 5, if I'm not mistaken, it could have been 7, I think it was 5 members of the United States Senate, open members of the Klan. Multiple governors were open members of the Klan. Most people didn't realize that a century ago the Klan was founded just 6 years before the horrific destruction here in Tulsa. And one of the reasons why it was founded was because of guys like me who are Catholic. It wasn't about African Americans then. It was about making sure that all those Polish and Irish and Italian and Eastern European Catholics who came to the United States after World War I would not pollute Christianity. The flames from those burning crosses torched every region of the country. Millions of white Americans belonged to the Klan, and they weren't even embarrassed by it. They were proud of it. And that hate became embedded systematically and systemically in our laws and our culture. We do ourselves no favors by pretending none of this ever happened, or it doesn't impact us today, because it does still impact us today. We can't just choose to learn what we want to know and not what we should know. We should know the good, the bad, everything. That's what great nations do. They come to terms with their dark sides. And we're a great nation. The only way to build a common ground is to truly repair and to rebuild. I come here to help fill the silence, because in silence, wounds deepen. And only, as painful as it is, only in remembrance do wounds heal. We just have to choose to remember. We memorialize what happened here in Tulsa, so it can't be erased. We know here, in this hallowed place, we simply can't bury pain and trauma forever. And at some point, there'll be a reckoning, an inflection point, like we're facing right now as a nation. What many people hadn't seen before, or simply refused to see, cannot be ignored any longer. You see it in so many places. There's greater recognition that for too long, we've allowed a narrowed, cramped view of the promise of this nation to fester. The view that America is a zero-sum game, where there's only one winner. If you succeed, I fail. If you get ahead, I fall behind. If you get a job, I lose mine. And maybe worst of all, if I hold you down, I lift myself up. Instead of, if you do well, we all do well. Wealth creation that will also help the entire community. The first is my administration has launched an aggressive effort to combat racial discrimination in housing. That includes everything from redlining to the cruel fact that a home owned by a black family is too often appraised at a lower value than a similar home owned by a white family. And I might add, and I need help if you haven't answered this one, I can't figure this one out, Congressman Horsford, but if you live in a black community and there's another one on the other side of the highway, it's a white community, it's built by the same builder, and you have a better driving record than the guy with the same car in the white community, you're paying more for your auto insurance. Shockingly, the percentage of black American homeownership is lower today in America than when the Fair Housing Act was passed more than 50 years ago. Lower today. That's wrong. And we're committed to changing that. Well off, the middle class will do better, and everybody will do better. It's about good paying jobs, financial stability, and being able to build some generational wealth. It's about economic growth for our country and outcompeting the rest of the world, which is now outcompeting us. But just as fundamental as any of these investments I've discussed is maybe the most fundamental: the right to vote.